TOR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub Recap, where we break down every single game of the 2024-2025 season involving your Vegas Golden Knights. They went on the road and they faced off against a playoff contending team in the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, there's no nice way to say this. They got embarrassed tonight. Your Vegas Golden Knights, they absolutely made a mess. They got shut out 3-0 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we're going to break down all of this. We're going to do the pregame notes and kind of go over some very important details that happened in this game against Toronto. And we're going to go over all of that here on Vegas Hockey Hub with your host, Ian Rachiele, on PR Connections Radio. Now, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights and the Toronto Maple Leafs and this game that happened in Toronto, and for the pregame notes, we had only one notable thing that happened involving your Vegas Golden Knights. And that is the fact that forward Victor Olofsson, recovering from injury, he has been gone for a while. He has been on the shelf trying to come back from the injury he sustained earlier in the season. Well, he is now in the AHL. He will be with the Henderson Silver Knights on a rehab assignment. So he will be playing in the AHL for a few games before he is 100% and will be back in Vegas. So I'm going to say about a week, 2 weeks maximum, Victor Olofsson will be with the Henderson Silver Knights, and he will be part of that organization. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Victor Olofsson does play in the AHL for a while until he eventually gets his way back and is fully healthy and on that middle six with your Vegas Golden Knights. Some people forget that he actually had a very quality start with the Vegas Golden Knights. He even picked up a goal or two out there in Vegas. So for Victor Olofsson, hopefully he comes back. Gave him that 1-year deal beginning of this year during the offseason. And we'll see how he does recovering from that injury. But yeah, Victor Olofsson going to be in the AHL with the Henderson Silver Knights on a rehab assignment. In the past, we've had guys like Aiden Hill, for example, like Robin Leonard. We've had Laurent Brisebois. There's been some guys who have been down in the AHL on a rehab assignment. They play a game or two, and then they get called up. So that was really the only pregame note that we saw, and that was the fact that Victor Olofsson is trying to come back to the Golden Knights organization. And as we're focusing on Vegas Golden Knights and Toronto Maple Leafs and this recap, and there's going to be a lot of good conversation and stuff we're going to be talking about on this episode. And we are actually having the depth chart. We're going to break down that in just a second. And we're going to be talking about all of that here on Vegas Hockey Hub on PRConnectionsRadio.com. Now, getting into the starting lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights. On forward line 1, you are going to have Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, and because Mark Stone is still injured, Pavel Dorofeyev. So Pavel Dorofeyev on that first line with Eichel and Barbashev. On the second line, you are going to have Tomas Hertl, Nick Waugh, and Keegan Kolesar. So it's going to be kind of good to see Waugh and Kolesar up on that second line with Hertl. And then on forward line 3, Alexander Holt, William Karlsson, and Brett Howden. We have seen the chemistry of Howden and Karlsson off and on throughout the years. And with William Karlsson coming back from the injury beginning of the year, really good to see him every single day in that lineup since he has come back. And then on the fourth and final line, you're going to have Burke, Pearson, and Schwint. So there is going to be a very interesting situation there because with Callahan Burke coming up from the AHL, playing with the Vegas Golden Knights here against Toronto, we're going to see how he does playing in the NHL. And then Cole Schwint, who is, that waiver claim they got before the season started. And he has been a contributor to that fourth line ever since he got added to the organization. And of course, Tanner Pearson, a guy they signed on that PTO in preseason, earned his opportunity and then eventually became a Vegas Golden Knight. Moving over to the defensive pairings for the Vegas Golden Knights, Noah Hannafin and Alex Pietrangelo on pairing 1, Caden Korzak and Braden McNabb on pairing 2 for the defense, and then defensive pairing 3 would be Shea Theodore and Zach Whitecloud. We saw the switching of the pairings a while ago. Bruce Cassidy trying to move stuff around, trying to see how they fit with the Vegas Golden Knights organization, and really curious to see how that goes. In this game, did not go as well as it should have been. And then with Aiden Hill in net for the Vegas Golden Knights, going up against Joseph Woll out there in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. So that is the starting lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights in this matchup. Now, when it comes to a game that you get shut out 3-0, when it comes to a game where your Vegas Golden Knights went up against an opponent that's dealing with injuries on their end, by the way, there are some players that are gone on Toronto's team that are very important for them, and you get shut out 3-0, where do you start? How do you start a recap show if you're going to talk about losing to Toronto 3-0? Now, the way I could do this, and the way this should be addressed, is the turnovers. It has become very concerning, the amount of turnovers in the neutral zone. How the Vegas Golden Knights are giving up the puck while in the offensive zone, trying to get the puck over into the slot, trying to move it over to the point. The Vegas Golden Knights are a very good team when everyone is on it, okay? Offensively, we know how well Vegas can be when they are all on the same side, when they're all on the same wavelength mentally. But these turnovers, regardless if it's in the offensive zone, neutral zone, defensive zone, it has become a concern watching these games, seeing the Vegas Golden Knights give up the unnecessary turnovers when they shoot from left to right across their body. Those are getting picked off in hockey. I mean, kind of makes you wonder after a while, why would you even attempt shooting the puck from left to right with the amount of turnovers that are being done in that zone? But I digress. That's the first main issue with the Vegas Golden Knights. The turnovers and the sloppiness of the puck handling and puck possession. That is an aspect that we really need to focus on with your Vegas Golden Knights. It needs to be addressed when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. And if you have more games like this throughout the year, if you have more games where you're turning over the puck at the rate that they are, you're not going to win when you turn over the puck that much. And being shut out 3-0, it shouldn't have been a shock watching them play and how bad they were at puck possession. But the second thing the Vegas Golden Knights did is that you put up 31 shots against Toronto, and yet not a single one got past the goaltender. Now look, I get it if it's Connor Hellebuck, okay? I understand if it's prime Martin Brodeur, if it's Patrick Waugh, if it's Dominic Hasek. I would understand if it was some of the greatest goaltenders of all time. But I want to remind you, the Toronto Maple Leafs have a shaky goaltending situation. This is a Toronto Maple Leafs organization that has had a turnover rate of goaltenders the past few years. And yes, the goaltender they have in net did incredible tonight. I will acknowledge that. But he is not Connor Hellebuck. He's not Jake Ottinger. He's not Andrei Vasilevsky. He's not Sorokin. He's not Shesterkin. So to have 31 shots on net and for the Vegas Golden Knights to put up 0 on the scorecard, it's very discouraging. And honestly, it's kind of embarrassing to watch this game. Now, look, they're going to dust it off. They're going to watch film. They're going to regroup. They're going to go into practice. They're going to head to Ottawa because this is the road trip that they are on right now. Okay? This is one of the hardest road trips for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is the Canadian road trip where you're going to go up against teams like Toronto. You're going to go up against Ottawa, who is a team on the rise, a soon-to-be playoff contender. If not this year, it'll be next year. You got Montreal, who, this is a team that has some upside. They have some good players on that organization. They just need to kind of find their stride there. So overall, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, to start out this road trip with a very bad performance, going to be very curious to see how the next 2 games go. Giving up power play goals is not encouraging for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I'm going to point out that I'm using NHL.com, or I'm using the statistics and everything they have on there, all the analytical data that they have, alongside watching the game that we just saw play at the Scotiabank Arena. And what really concerned me was that power play goal they gave up to William Nylander. I mean, I would understand when it comes to having power play goals, you're going to let up every once in a while, but that was just a really bad performance on the penalty kill on that possession in the third period, giving up that goal to Nylander to make it a 2-0 game after Fraser Minton scored to make it a 1-0 game in the first period. I just really sit here and go, that was a really sloppy penalty kill. I didn't like the performance, and I'm hoping that the power play for other teams don't try to replicate what Toronto did against Vegas tonight. So, when you saw Toronto being up 2-0, I'm not even going to talk about the empty netter. At the end of the game, Vegas pulled the empty net. I think it was Holmberg. He scored, making it a 3-0 game for Toronto. I don't even want to talk about that. Empty net is an empty net. Most people don't really acknowledge it when it's a shutout, okay? But one part that we do need to address, though, are the multiple scrums that happened here. We have to address the hit that Zach Whitecloud did on Matthew Knies. Which, by the way, as a hockey fan, I have no doubt in my mind we're going to see retribution. It could be later in the year when Toronto takes on Vegas. It could be next year when Vegas goes back and faces Toronto. Whenever it happens, there's going to come a game in the future that, Matthew Knies is going to see Zach Whitecloud again, and he's going to lay into him. Because this is a possible concussion for Matthew Knies. This is not a great hit for Zach Whitecloud. The fact that Simeon Benoit stood up and actually got the penalties, and there was the scrums going back and forth when it came to that situation, I applaud what the Toronto Maple Leafs did. If the opposite was that way, okay, and if it was a young player like Pavel Dorofeyev that got hit by, let's just say, someone like Simeon Benoit, yes, the Vegas Golden Knights would take offense. The Vegas Golden Knights would have a scrum immediately afterwards. And I really sit there and go, the Zach Whitecloud hit on Matthew Knies. Obviously, I don't think there's going to be NHL investigation. I don't think it's gone to that level of a hit, but it was still a bad hit nonetheless. And with that being the first one, that was really the kind of interesting part there during the second period, seeing what happened in that situation. And then we had another scrum about halfway into the second period. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Brett Howden, they both went to the box for roughing penalties, and it was just kind of interesting to see multiple scrums, 2 different scrums within 5 minutes of each other. And that was just like the bad blood. That was the intensity that came off of the hit that Zach Whitecloud did on Matthew Nyes. So on top of getting shut out 3-0, the Vegas Golden Knights having that situation with Matthew Nyes and with Zach Whitecloud, it just didn't make it better. And, Alexander Holtz had a roughing penalty as well. You have all these guys that were getting roughing penalties in the second period. In terms of discipline, it did not look good for Vegas. And the last thing I want to kind of put up on here is that this season, Vegas has kind of set a tone that I'm starting to not like. So far, in the first 19, your Vegas Golden Knights have struggled and or can't beat playoff caliber teams. We have seen what happened against the LA Kings earlier this month. We saw what happened with the guys like Florida and Tampa back in October. I mean, it's just kind of interesting to see the Vegas Golden Knights have this problem when it comes to going up against teams. The Washington Capitals look like a playoff caliber team, and we saw that Vegas did struggle for a little bit against Washington earlier in the season. Edmonton Oilers, the Vegas Golden Knights picked up the victory there, but it was not a great performance. It was kind of, a meh performance last time he took on Edmonton. So I hope this isn't a trend we see for the rest of the year. I kind of hope that we don't see the Vegas Golden Knights struggle year-round with playoff caliber teams, but having a shutout against the Toronto Maple Leafs was not great, and it was not good for the Vegas Golden Knights. So after being shut out 3-0 by Toronto, player of the game due to his defensive play will be Brayden McNabb. He had a few blocks. There's some good hits he had in this game. Brayden McNabb would be your player of the game. And right now, your win-loss record for the Vegas Golden Knights on the screen. And, they're still going to be one of the top teams in the Pacific Division. But it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens moving forward involving your Vegas Golden Knights. It's going to be a very interesting situation to see how Vegas performs against Ottawa, which is the next game. And then Montreal after that. I also want to remind you, and it's also the same Vegas Golden Knights, that after Montreal, you're going to take on Philadelphia. Okay? Before you get to go take on Colorado after that, and then Winnipeg a little bit down the road. So that's really the rest of the month for your Vegas Golden Knights. And we'll be very curious to see how they do for the Vegas Golden Knights organization. So this is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Follow us on social media. We are on our YouTube channel at Vegas Hockey Hub. We have our Facebook page at Vegas Hockey Hub. We have our Instagram where we upload content to the games that we go to at Vegas Hockey Hub. We have our Twitter where we do live streams. We do recaps, during the game. We try to engage with all the people who are following us on Twitter. We have a couple hundred followers on our account on Twitter at Vegas Hockey Hub. We also have our TikTok as well at Vegas Hockey Hub. We try to upload videos, of practice sessions, for example, being at the games. We kind of, do the warm-ups. We take video during the warm-ups, put them on the TikTok. And if you want to follow the network, we are on all major platforms at PR Connections Radio. And if you want to follow your host, I am also on all social media pages, and I'm also on my website down below, www.thesportsangle.com. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens moving forward involving your Vegas Golden Knights. But until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and go Knights.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.